Let's bring in political analyst Lydia Miljan, who's joining us from Windsor, Ontario. Lydia, let's start with the polls and what you make of this. We're starting to see the Conservatives, well, they're basically at 39%. That's the highest they have been so far in this race, but still, 5 points, give or take, behind the Liberals.
Yes, they are picking up a little bit of steam, sort of picking up what they lost since essentially Mark Carney came onto the scene. Really, I think the poll story is not so much the Conservatives losing support. I mean, they were never going to hold on to that massive support they had last year, but they were really banking on the fact that you'd still have the Bloc and the NDP in play, because that really splits the vote on the left. And, with Mark Carney sort of eating up that vote, that's made it much more difficult for them to see how they're going to form a government. So something has to happen in the next few days, or in less than a week, for the fortunes to change, because right now it looks like the Liberals certainly are able to have been benefiting to the detriment of especially the NDP.
Yeah, and obviously, external events continue to rock the campaign. Earlier today was this Honda news. Now maybe we've seen, the Honda saying that's not necessarily the case, so that's good news. But, who knows what it'll be tomorrow and next week coming out of Washington. And we know the debates are coming up as well. How crucial are those, do you think, for the party leaders?
I think they're probably more crucial than they have in the past. I know there's huge debates about whether or not debates matter, but in fact, they can change the direction. They can either solidify what we've been seeing in the polls, or they can move the numbers in other directions. They can basically move from a majority government to a minority government. I think these debates are going to be important, because a lot of voters have signaled that they have a shifting. They're not necessarily really solidified in their support, especially of the Liberals. So this is what really theirs to lose right now. Mark Carney has to not just, I think I was saying earlier in the week that he has to not lose, but I think in this case he might have to win these debates, especially win over a lot of Canadians, and really emphasize that he's the person for the times. And so that obviously opens up a lot of space for the opposition parties to really attack him, to really question his ability to perform. And it's ironic that every time Trump is mentioned, anytime we talk about tariffs, that actually gives a boost to the Liberals and Mark Carney. So, they, as much as they are very serious about this and are concerned about it, at the same time, you can sort of see a little pep in their step whenever Trump is mentioned.
We know that some top Conservative strategists have been questioning the Conservative campaign this time around. I'm curious how you, Lydia, account for such a massive swing in support for the Liberals. You've been on this program many times as we tracked, the political demise, so to speak, of Justin Trudeau. Now a new leader, but, they were behind by 20, 25 points at one point, and now they have been ahead during this entire campaign.
Well, there's a couple things. One is people really like the idea of Mark Carney. They like his credentials, but also he's been quite savvy. He's really been taking a lot of the policy stances that the Conservatives had. So all those irritants that Canadians had, the carbon tax, for example, capital gains tax, he's basically, before even the election began, he said, okay, we're going to take those off the table. And that's really made him be able to make the case that he's the person that is decisive, and that also can negotiate with Trump. And so that's how he's been able to really outsmart the Conservatives. I sort of do question about the infighting between the provincial progressive Conservatives and the federal Conservatives. You sort of have to wonder, what could the Conservatives have done, except to move to the left, which is certainly, that's what Doug Ford has done. But that doesn't sound authentic, and they probably would risk losing even more had they taken that stance, especially since Carney has essentially moved the Liberals to the right.
Right. And one last question about Pierre Poilievre and his leadership. How do you think he has done so far on this campaign trail? And we should point out 13 days is a long time to go before the actual vote. What do you make, though, of his performance?
Well, he's been really good, really effective at staying on message. He's been certainly trying to show the softer side of him. His problem isn't so much the general electorate, but of a certain demographic. Oddly enough, it's my demographic. Older women in Eastern Canada are the ones that were willing to vote Conservative when it was Justin Trudeau leading the Liberals. But now that there's a new party leader, they really like the idea of Mark Carney. They were never necessarily comfortable with Pierre Poilievre. And so his difficulty is, how does he reach to them? I ask a lot of my friends, it's like, so what is it about Poilievre that you don't like? And they're like, well, he was too aggressive in the House of Commons. And you point out, well, he was opposition leader. And so I wonder if they're even open to hearing his message, because he certainly has softened it down. He's not nearly as vitriolic as he was in the past, but that those images resonate still. They're sort of the underlying how people have judged him, and so that's really what he's got to do. He's got to bring back female voters over sort of 55. Certainly, he's done well with younger voters, and that's the other interesting story about this election campaign. We have an east-west divide, but we also have a young-old divide. You know, younger people who really want to get in the job market, who want to get housing, are still overwhelmingly in favor of the Conservatives, and so. Just happens to be more older people vote reliably than younger people.
Yeah, and we're certainly seeing a lot of support at rallies that Pierre Poilievre is holding in different parts of the country. Hey, Lydia, good to have you back with us. We'll talk again.